Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our live weekly Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Peter Crowe from Mackelbri Working Dogs.
Peter will be picking who he thinks has asked the best question of the night, and they'll win a bag of Enduro high energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat.
Hey Pete, how you going?
Yeah, Laura, really good. You going? You?
Good, thanks, mate. Good, thank you. What was your day like, Pete?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, we had a little bit of rain last night, so I was just feeding a few cattle and that's about all I did today. So up our way.
Very cool, mate. Mackelbri Working Dogs. We now understand that there's a meaning in that, mate. You want to talk us through that?
Yeah, well, the name Mackelbri is my 4 kids. I've got 4 kids. So I've got 2 older girls, Bridget and Eliza, and then I've got Alec. And so that's how we came across Mackelbri. Yeah. So,
that's cool.
Alec
Mate.
was the last, so he you've got to shuffle his letters about a bit to get here. So we sort of already had so that's how that originated.
And do they do you think they'll take on the name with any dogs, horses, cattle? Keep the same stuff?
Girls probably won't. Yeah, one of the boys, Mac might. Mac's pretty keen on animals. He likes dogs and horses and everything. So never know, but he's doing a building apprenticeship at the moment through school. So you'll get that done, I reckon. Yeah, so.
Couple of keen cricketers there as well, mate.
Yeah, the boy's mad on cricket. Yeah. We all play cricket. We still play cricket. I still play. We play in the local club in town here at Murrundi, playing the Scone comp.
And have you always been around the Murrundi area?
No, we sort of grew up. We grew up in Scone, Laura. Well, parents had country east of Scone, but they divorced pretty early on, and we split up. So we actually grew up in Scone itself, in the town. So yeah, we were town kids there for a while until every holidays we used to go out. My grandmother had her son, so uncle, they had a farm east of Scone, so that's where we sort of developed a bit of a passion for the horses, and there wasn't many good dogs about there. So that's where we started on the land, really. And then I went through the local schools there in Scone, and then I went away. I went to uni, actually. So not many people know that. I went to university in Sydney.
In Sydney?
In the city. See how they all live. And then came back and got a job around Murrundi, east of Murrundi, in the Tormal area.
That would have been a bit of a culture shock when you come to Big Smoke.
It was. Yeah, it was. Yeah. But uni's pretty. You go, Laura.
I was just going to say, what were you studying down here?
I was studying, it was called Wool and Pastoral Science. Yeah, so that was in the late 80s, and the wool industry was kicking along pretty good. In the year I got out, I think the reserve price scheme fell out, the floor fell out of it, and the wool industry went over, basically. So I was onto the land and started looking after a few places.
So you're in Sydney, but you weren't, you're still, the agriculture background was still there with you in a lot of ways with what you were studying. Yeah,
it was. It's sort of basically like an agronomy course in behind animal science, really. Yeah, it's an applied science degree. Yeah. So if you went on to careers in the wool industry itself, managed some big companies to do with wool, but I didn't really like that all that much. So anyway, look, you've got to try a few different things and know where you want to be in life.
So I'm assuming you're back with cattle now, then.
Yeah, I was going to say that no wool on cattle, mate.
Well, like this area around Murrundi, in East Murrundi, Tormal area, we used to have a fair few sheep, actually, when it first came in.
Yeah, well,
it's only the last probably 10 years that sheep have dropped out of the system just because of wild dogs, really. Like we were on the range nearly, and it did a lot of dog trouble. And the price of wool sort of fell back pretty well because we came back from uni, and brother and I, we bought a block on the range, and we only ran sheep there actually to start with. We were all fine, super fine, so it was pretty steep country, pretty high up, good wool country. So that's where, I suppose I used a bit to do with the degree there, maybe.
Yeah. So when you come back from Sydney, you're back around home. Did you venture off anywhere else in between, mate, or just?
Not for a while, no, because we committed place pretty early on, so we sort of went. That's my brother and I, look, we're both on places looking after. No, not so. Yeah, we're on places sort of looking after them, and we used to work there 5 days a week, and then Saturday mornings we go up to the block, called it the block, and then Saturday afterwards we played cricket. We're all pretty keen sportsmen. And then Sunday we'd go back to the block. So we sort of worked pretty hard for a fair while, 6.5 days a week, I think. And then, so we sort of grounded around this area for a fair while. We have been,
Yeah, and you mentioned there you got out of sheep. Near 10 years ago, was it? You got out of sheep there?
Probably a little bit longer there now, but around this area, sheep sort of dropped out of the system. Like there's nearly there wouldn't be. There's probably only 1 or 2 flocks left in the district now. Yeah, and everyone still has a few kills and that, but that's about it. Yeah, it's mostly all cattle country now. It's and it's in the head of the Hunter area, and it's the change of ownership too. A lot of corporates are coming, a lot of city people coming in buying country, and so it's all sort of gone to cattle. And lower around Scone, so there's a lot of thoroughbreds.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of dogs getting around up there, like in the last decade. We're kind of getting on top of it.
No, not really getting on top of it. I think it's an ongoing problem. I think the dogs are actually moving over the range, like over the Staines into Walladar, Willow Tree, Nunlin area. There's still sheep there, and they're copying the brunt of what we had 10, 15 years ago now, because we were sort of the last line of defence, and now they are now. So, and a lot of mine country hunter too, so there's a lot of dogs all the time. And so
do you find they stir your cattle up, or your cattle stirred up when you're
in the lower hunter? They say they're losing calves and that because they're hunting in packs and that, but not so much up here. We're sort of not at that stage yet. And look, it's a bit of a management issue, I suppose. They've been baiting for, 30 odd years and using helicopters and everything, and the problem's got worse, but they keep doing it. So I don't think that's probably the answer for it. So that's a different issue, I suppose.
And do you think that changes the type of dog you have to run because of the exposure your cattle are having to the wild dogs and the country, obviously?
Probably not, Dan. It's around here you don't have much change, in cows and calves sort of thing. Like, just depending how they've been handled. Most of your own homebred cattle are sort of pretty good to handle still and used to dogs, and I don't think the dogs seem to worry them too much.
Yeah. So obviously you need dogs where you are and all the rest, but how did you first get into them?
Well, the first dogs were probably, the brother was probably Ben's older brother. He's 18 months older. He sort of probably started me into dogs because he went away jackarooing. He came back with a few dogs, and we just need them. Our country's steep, as I said. Every place I've worked on's been, it's pretty vertical. So it's all horses and usually. And then you're into cattle, you just need, we just need dogs. It's just, you're only riding a horse, you're only walking a horse. There's no use chasing cattle in this country. So just out of necessity. And then, we just grew from there, realised how valuable they are as a tool, really, to do our job.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first one, mate?
First bitch I had, she was a red and tan Kelpie. She was a real good bitch. Actually, a bit touchy bugger, but really loyal. Yeah, she'd work straight, really good in the bush. Yeah, she was a good bitch. Yeah, I probably didn't value it at the time, as you do with your first things you get. And she was pretty well bred actually. She was out of a White's, one of Gary White's bitches that Ben bought from him, and by an old dog that Ben had, which goes back to a dog that we sort of grew up with on our uncle's farm, really. And he goes back to an Avonpark dog. So.
Mm-hmm.
And he was. So the father of the bitch, he was a really good dog. He was a crossbred dog. He was out of a collie bitch by a Kelpie. So that's where our original dogs come from. Yeah.
And have you guys still got? Sorry, you go.
No, you go, Laura. Yep.
Oh, I was going to say, have you guys still got much of those genetics in your lines?
Yeah, got it all still in there. I counted up the other day. We've got about, on the mother's side, be 12 probably, and then on the side, I'm up to about 13 generations, and they all go back to them.
That's unreal.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's held true pretty well, yeah. But they've all changed. The style of dogs have changed a bit from working sheep to working cattle, out of necessity sort of thing.
And what do you mean by that? Like need a stronger type of dog, or what?
Yeah, pretty well. Like sheep, you need a dog with a bit more colour, a bit more touch, like mastering weathers and then steep country. That sometimes they get pretty weak too, and so you can't push them. But you just need that bit of feel. And then you go back to the yards. You're having a dog that backs and carries on, and then you go to cattle. Dogs working cattle all the time. They tend to straighten up a bit. If you've got strong dogs, the cast shortens up a bit, or it gets a bit straighter. And the dogs don't need the footwork properly. They can get away a bit more. So I've gone sort of towards trying to chase the strength a bit for cows and calf work. So I did a bit of contracting for a fair while. Mostly did that, and then that was just cow and calf work all the time. Yeah. So you just need strength. Been chasing strength for a long time.
Yeah. And where have you been looking at within your own lines? Have you been looking to outsource that?
Well, to start with, there's been a couple probably influential sort of dogs we used, I suppose. Early on, because we started with a crossbred base, we decided to go down the Kelpie line pretty well. We used a dog called Crowe, Donald. He's a big yellow Kelpie. He used to live on a dairy farm, and he'd handle 3 sheep, 3 cows and calves. He'd handle anything. He was a good dog, and he sort of put a bit of a stamp in our dogs. We crossed that back over themselves a few times, and then we sort of used since then I've used a lot of Chris Stapleton's bloodlines, like the Capri dogs. They've sort of, like, he set a pretty big foundation for the lines, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And what is it about those lines that have suited yourself and Ben?
They're just with dogs. I like a dog that's sort of practical, gets a job done. That's my main sort of ethic, is to just get a job done. So I want to be pretty calm, got to be pretty confident, and I like a dog to sort of come at this, have the ability to come at, stop, take the weight. But if they draw a line, they've got to, especially cattle, you got to hit them on the head there somehow, bite the nose or high on the head, but do it without upsetting stock, because I think by using dogs, they're not just a tool, but they're a tool for people to actually quiet and move stock, isn't it? So it's a stockmanship thing using dogs, I think. Like if you handle stock quietly using dogs, livestock, they actually respect the dogs and they calm down. they actually physically relax when you're using a dog correctly.
I just love how you say when you use them correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, Laura. No idea.
And that's something I suppose we touched on the other night as well. Like, obviously, we talked to a lot of contractors, and then speaking to someone like yourself that runs your own place, and the value of someone running their own of dogs for someone that runs their own place, and maybe sometimes when people are using contractors, they're not valuing their contractors' dogs.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I think look, farmers like we were saying the other night, weren't we, that most of the people who got pretty have actually had to work on farms for other people. They're probably not in a fortunate position to have their own farm and come up through that way. So they've had to value add their skills they've got and go from there. And so, yeah, farmers don't actually value a stock person on their place who's got good dogs. He's actually adding value to those stock all the time. And when you watch someone who's really good at it, it looks really simple and easy. And you do get that comment a lot. Oh, that doesn't that won't take you long, or it's easy to do that. And it is undervalued.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, mate. There's a couple of questions come through. Just looking here. Some of them come through after we've spoken about stuff as well. How do you think those ones that are undervalued? How do you think we change, or how do you think as a collective we can change a few opinions there, or can we?
Oh, I think it's changing now, Dan, for sure. It's just the value of dogs through sales, the number of sales around and the prices the better dogs are making. Even the average dogs are making where they probably should be, really. If I was a young bloke there now, I'd go out and buy a couple of dogs if you had the money for around that $10,000. And geez, over a lifetime, you get 10 years of pretty solid work out of a dog. It's only $1,000 a year. And then that's a situation where you can do any job, your value's added through your tools, really, isn't it? So I think people do value dogs, and there's a lot of inquiry for people ringing up wanting dogs to work cattle and sheep, and labour's so dear, isn't it? Whereas a $10,000 dog doesn't seem that bad, actually, rather than a $60,000, $70,000 employee.
Expensive habit, but for work or hobby, but for work, I don't think it's. I reckon it's a pretty good investment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, you have to have a passion, I suppose, whether it's a hobby or you're using them for work. Yeah.
100%. Like myself, I wouldn't go and spend that money based on, 15, 20 acres here and mucking around with 30, 40 sheep and trialing. But if I was working full time every day, I'd look at that and go, well, like you said, over 10 years, it's peanuts, really, right? Like, we could break that down further if you wanted to. It's like, oh, geez, I'm going to talk to myself now.
Yeah.
That's $3 on average, about $3 a day.
Yeah. Right. That's right.
A cup of coffee costs double.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of employers probably need to look at blokes working for them, and actually, they should probably incentivise young fellas to go help them contribute. They should contribute to young fellas buying a dog or something, and implement a program where they help to pay for the dog. They stay for 2 years. You can, you can have the dog or something like that.
Almost.
Yeah, $10,000 money out is enough money.
Yeah. Well, a lot of young people don't have that sort of money to go out and buy the dog to take to work. They've got to save it or train one up as they go.
That's right. But I think our industry's at the stage. There's a lot of people out there who see young people there, and I think they do give a few dogs away. And you look, most people look after young blokes in the area, and don't they? So take this dog, have him, and if he turns out pretty good, might get a pup back out or something like that. And that's just industry, I think. So, and that's
definitely
people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you sell a few dogs yourself, mate?
Yeah, I've been selling a few last 12 months. I've been selling a few dogs, actually. Yeah. But over the years, I used to Not a lot, just need them for work. Actually, Dan, I was running 7 or 8 work dogs probably, and then you need, if you have ins, you need sort of 6 or 7 young, like next stage down, and then you probably have 6 or 7 ups. So you've still got a fair number of dogs coming along all the time. And working cows and calves and that, you get some injuries. So.
And so, like you've mentioned there a couple of times, like you think people should go out, and if you could, you would go out and buy, a dog for 10 grand if you were starting over again. But what advice, or do you have any advice for someone that was in that position? Like what to look for?
Yeah, well, if you couldn't. It depends on your skills, I suppose, Laura, whether you can handle a dog or not. Like, if you've been around dogs long enough, definitely worth the investment. If you're just starting out, don't know a lot about dogs, well, you'd probably pick up an older dog at a sale, even for a pretty reasonable money, just to get you going, and then go to a few schools, get a few skills, and then you can have a few pups and young dogs coming on all the time. Because, look, for people like working on the land, like it's never money, is it? So if you're working with dogs and horses all the time, that's your unfair advantage. You have to work, so you can value add those dogs and horses and make income on the side. And that's sort of how I look at it now. And you love doing it, so yeah. And if someone's paying a week, and that's value, you've got to look at it on a positive note that it's value adding your dogs as well. You might be helping them out by value adding their stock, but you end up getting a reputation, and your value, your livestock you're selling goes up accordingly, doesn't it?
Yeah,
100%. And you mentioned there, like schools, and you mentioned earlier when we first started about like a little bit about horses, but not really dogs. And in the 80s when you got kicking off, what information was open for you there? Like, how did you go about educating yourself about dogs? Was it all trial and error?
I think it's changed a fair bit there now. Like when we were growing up, it was pretty old Australian school with horses and dogs. You sort of just had to do it a tough way. Like blokes they weren't really willing to share the secrets, so to speak. Yeah. Whereas now there's so many clinics and so many good horsemen out there, so many videos, there's so many good dogmen out there. They're more than willing to set a school up and give it. You only a phone call away a lot of the time for some advice. And look, with YouTube, there's plenty of how to do things, isn't there? So
definitely,
that's changed a bit. So when we started off, we were lucky enough here in Time. We had a few pretty good old bushmen, Stan Watson and the like, and Tony McCallum. He was just down the road too. So he was still on a place, and he sort of probably influenced us on how to control a dog, more control than anything, like what you can actually do with a dog, which was sort of like a lot of the time, like my dogs get the job done, that's for sure. But it's probably more out of stockmanship than training. Like it's and by choosing a line which is where they should be, rather than teaching them to be there. A lot of them are already there. Like that's what I want. I want a dog who knows where to be with strength. He knows knows where the pressure point is really. And those dogs that sort of naturally keep stock flowing, I think that's a really, really important stock flow.
Having a mixed breed dog at the beginning there, why did you take the Kelpie path over the Collie path?
We all make mistakes by doing something like that, putting a collie in it. Just a bit more. Yeah, well, they're probably a bit more. I don't like being told what to do. I'm a bit more independent. And the collies I've had to deal with or work with, I've only owned one, I think, and it sort of didn't live long. Well, I passed it on, and. They're just a bit more, collies are a bit more, they're more trainable, I think. That's not my cup of tea. I'd rather an independent dog. As I said earlier, he gets in the right spot himself. And I don't mind a dog that's pretty hard-headed. I've had a couple of pretty hard-headed dogs. I had old Skid. He was he's pretty tough to break in. I bought him out of sale actually, and he turned out one of my better dogs. But I never actually, to this day, I don't have sides on him. I've only ever, probably because I've never been able to train him because he never really appreciated discipline at all.
Yeah.
I turned him up there one day, just giving him a bit of love, and he bit me. And then the only other time I did it, he bit me again. So we sort of had a pretty good understanding in the end that that's not going to
He
work.
taught you well.
So he trained me up pretty well. That that's not the way to train dogs. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably more I've gone down the Kelpie path is just the independent thinking. Yeah, I just like them. They can, just a bit hard-headed, I suppose, but I don't mind that, as I say.
Yeah.
And who's in your current, can you tell us about a couple of your current dogs in your main team there?
Yeah, well, I don't have a main sire at the moment. I've had a bit of a clean out in my dogs because I've only usually keep a couple of dogs, mostly all bitches in the team. And I've had old Blue, and I had Capri Blue. He's a really good dog, and Skid, and they've been my main sires for a few years. So I don't like having too many dogs about because it's just they fight and they want to wee on everything. I don't like that much. So I've had bitches, and so at the moment I've got my dogs. I think I've got about 5 main bitches. They're all sort of they're out of sort of a Kenny bloodline, Dean bloodline. Dean was a Coogee dog, Jim Luce's we bought early on, and we sort of didn't use him for a few years because he's a bit touchy, but then we only put him over a few bitches towards the end of his career, and we got Ben bred Glennie out of him, and he's been pretty influential over a lot of, especially in the working cattle. He's been a strong dog, and so a lot of the dogs go back there. I use that. I'm pretty focused on the genetics of it too. So I keep it pretty close when I'm breeding, and so I've sort of had Blue and Skid lines, and I've kept a couple of families either way, sort of thing. Similar styles of working, and I sort of crisscross them back over, and then use a bit of Capri blood, a fair bit of Capri blood at times too. And again, go back to the under Chris and use Moss, and we've used Minute and Watch. And if you look at all the pedigrees that all the better Kelpies are working cattle, they all go back to that Minute and Watch and Baron, which Chris talks about too. So it's probably in the collie world, it's probably pretty similar. It all goes back to a pretty core genetic.
Mm-hmm. So how close is too close in your opinion then?
I don't go, or like just daughters and grandfathers probably closest I'll sort of go. But nature sort of tells you if it's too close anyway. You sort of start to lose a bit of fitness and those sort of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in saying genetics is important. Also, they've got to be still the type of dogs you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I had a question and then I just gone again.
I could see it in you, like you're holding onto it.
I can't remember what I was going to ask. Sorry.
Gone?
Yeah, totally gone. That's embarrassing. It was a good one.
That's cool. Did you remember it? No. Mate, you mentioned Blue and Kenny there, and like especially Kenny. I suppose you see him in a lot of cattle lines, and Blue as well. What made those dogs special?
Probably a couple of things. Their strength. They're strong dogs. They take the weight. They can move stock without biting a lot. They usually Benno and Kenny. So so I can't probably comment too much on Kenny, but he bred on a lot. I had Blue and he's by Kenny, and I had Skid who's by Kenny as well. And Blue, had a good grip on his stock. He liked to confront his stock. He wouldn't torment him. He's calm enough, but and he was tough. He was athletic. Like he'd bite on the end of the nose of a cow, and he had the ability to curl right round the head and then get out of the road because you've got to have a dog that's athletic or smart enough to get out of the road. There's no, when you're working cattle, there's no use being a rough dog and getting hurt all the time because, well, it's pretty expensive to fix broken legs, isn't it? So
Yeah.
like athleticism and toughness, and probably that desire, like want to work like all the time. It'll give you 120%, and that's I like a dog like that.
Yeah, and while we're talking about genetics here, there's a question from John Starr. He's asked, do you think that strength is the main genetic trait that shines through out of a very much sheepdog line, like what produced Karawara Donald and Karawara Rocket to produce dogs suitable for cattle work?
I think it's a number of things. Strength it just depends what your class strength is, I suppose. But to work cattle, you do need a bite. You need a bite on the head at some stage, but it's got to be, and that comes with being in the right spot. Like you don't have to be a hard biter, but if you're in the right spot and you draw a line and they give me either a nip on the nose or a good hard hit on the nose or on the head somewhere, like that's sort of strength to me. But those dogs, like Donald, he was a really classy dog too, and he probably didn't have to bite all the time. He enjoyed it, but and Kenny and Blue and that, like towards the end, their careers, like very rarely actually bit stock. They could. I had old Skid with me. He's 13 or 14 the other day. He's got no teeth in his head, and I was checking heifers, and he gets in front of the buggy because he can't hop on. And I had a couple of heifers was just drifting off, and so the day old calves, and these heifers never really seen many dogs, and I had 3 young dogs there. And old Skid decides to get out and help, and he went nose. The heifer came at him pretty hard, and he just went nose to nose, and he just played chicken basically, and because he got no teeth, and they got nearly touched their noses together, and this heifer, she realised his strength was there, and she stopped and walked away.
Yeah.
Whereas the young dog showed a bit of weakness or just flinched or came at it. Like it's that those better dogs, they just know where to be and how to handle stock. They sort of dominate the stock, but dominate in a good way. The stock know that they're not there to hurt them, and there's no fear involved. I think that's pretty important too, that the stock aren't fearful, and that's when you're working them too. Like when your cattle are quiet or your sheep are quiet and you have dogs around, they shouldn't be scared of them. The dogs shouldn't actually make them relax. That's how I work or try to get mine to go.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that strength is built up with age and training and experience, or do you prefer to have a dog that just, from day dot is happy to stand there and take that cow on?
I think they've got it in them innately. Like a pup, a young dog who jumps up and grabs the head of sheep, or when you're getting on a horse or something, he's working horses, that dog will always chase the head of a cattle or whatever. And but how you handle them, you can either wreck that, take that desire away to a certain degree, or encourage it, like build that confidence. It's probably no different to kids, is it? Dogs and kids, I've always said, are very similar. Like you can judge a person's dogs by what their kids are and vice versa. So that confidence building is a really important thing. And to slow your dogs down, I think that's really, I try to concentrate on young dogs to slow them down, calm them down, and make them walk in a bit, not rushing. So, that's what I work on.
Yeah. So in that sense, what age do you then start taking those dogs to work and giving them that experience to grow it?
Just depends on your dogs. Like every dog's different, and every dog's got a different stage of development. It's like kids growing up, isn't it? One can be 15 and already reached puberty, and others are 15 and nowhere near it. Like and dogs are the same. It's so you only if they're up to it, they'll go to work. Yeah, like I've shown dogs at 10 months old on cows and calves, and if they're a good dog, they'll handle it. It's just knowing how much to give them and not going through complete exhaustion so they get hurt or anything. So it's just setting them up a bit.
Yeah.
Do you want to go that one while we're talking about
this? Mick Goodman asked, do you think you can get strength and breakout cast in the same dog generally?
The stronger the dog, I believe, the straighter the dog runs, the straighter cast. But that doesn't mean that you can't get them to do it. You just got to train them. The kids look for stock, and like the good dogs still find stock. They'll still cast a long way. They just might be a bit straighter on the run out. I think strength and cast like shape of your cast, and that's probably directly inversely bloody proportional. I think. Strength straightens dogs up. That's what I've found on cattle.
Yeah.
And running cattle, how do you go about starting your pups?
I've got a few. I start all my pups on sheep. I've got a few sheep. I've got 60 odd crossies. Yeah, so they all start on sheep. Yeah. Nice to start them. Yeah, look, I'll start showing them at 6 weeks just to sort them out a bit, and then I just get them going. So I get them going around both ways. Pups, all dogs, same as us, they're left and right-handed, so just balance them up a bit better. And then I don't really, because I run a fair few dogs. I don't continually work my young dogs. I give them a fair spell for a while, just show them to keep them interested, and then not till probably 7, 8 months old, I'll start just give them a bit more, and then go to work. I've always been a big believer taking to work. It's the best way to get a stop on a dog is stop on anything. Actually, kids, exhaustion beats everything.
Make them work.
Yeah.
Give them a job.
Give them a job.
And working for yourself as well gives you the luxury of doing that and not feeling guilty. Like where some people, like contractors, might feel a bit off on training their dog on the job as well.
Yeah, I don't think many contractors feel guilty about working paid and doing what they do.
I mean, so dropping out a young dog that's probably still a little bit inexperienced.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, when you're working for someone else, you're obligated to do your job. That's your profession, isn't it? So as long as it's not impacting on your job, you do. Yeah, most employers are pretty good about it, but you're not there to train dogs, that's for sure. And working for yourself, you can do whatever you want, really, can't you? So that's a bit of a luxury.
I was just going to ask that question now.
That's all right, you go then.
No, you can ask it. John. I was going to ask it myself.
Oh, John and Dan have asked. Is there anything specific you look for in a pup to tell if it will suit cows and calves more than dry stock?
There's not a lot. The best thing to do is look at the parents. Like you're breeding, it's just a lot easier. You've got breeding behind you. You know all the parents work. Like all our dogs, they don't get bred from until they've been to work really. So, but there's a few things there like. When you first show them on sheep, you want them to come at the stock a bit. Doesn't mean they're a dirty bite. I'd like a pup that just walks up onto the head. I don't like bite anywhere anywhere else. Just a few things. I never like a bully. A pup that is the bully of the litter, I never take them. They're usually the cowards. Just a few little things like that. A few other tail sets. Yeah, you got to have a low tail set usually, and even I've found that some of them aren't the big bowl friendly ones. It's the it might be an aloof pup, or he's just by himself, or might even be the runt. Like the runt's got to fight all the way through his life, doesn't he? He has lots of fights. The big puppy, big bold fellow who's the bully, he very rarely has a fight because no one takes him on. So yeah, just a little few. But breeding still, that's the best way to source a pup. Look, if you aren't worried about them.
What about those pups, at 6 weeks old, when you take them to your sheep and you just put them down? And those ones that just have more presence about them. You see like the sheep already drifting off them, or compared to the one that they might come up and have a stamp at. Are you keeping your eye on that pup a bit more?
Yeah, like all animals attract like it's like the cow with Skid. Like really, he's exuding a positive influence on like an energy field around him. Really, like, and that's the same with pups that move stock. Really, like it's no different to you meeting someone for the first time. You get feeling whether you like one or not, isn't it? It's energy, and kids and that are probably more in tune to it than as you get older in life. If you haven't followed that, you lose it. Like horses and dogs and kids, they can all suss someone out who's they don't like, can't they? Or if you're in a bad mood, you don't go working dogs and you don't go riding young horses, or any horses probably. And energies are pretty. I use that a fair bit.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. I think that's something that's very underrated. People just think you're not right, like 100% with you there, mate. Totally.
Yeah, well, a lot of that. You have a look in any field, the geniuses or the elite horses or dogs or anything, they've got something wrong. Like they're different. They're off the store. Like they've got some little quirky thing about them, haven't they? Like
yeah.
And it's not because they're so different. It's because they're just probably smarter than everyone else. Like.
Mate, while we're talking about learning, Jamie Manning's asked, being a little brother, did you learn any great tips off your big brother?
How to yell and swear at dogs, Jamie. Ben was a big influence on the dogs early on, yeah, for sure. Ben's a good handler, with dogs. But it doesn't mean we didn't have our moments. That's all. We know Jamie pretty well.
Mate,
so
you're right.
I was going to say, so do you guys spend much time working dogs together these days?
Not so much nowadays. Yeah, but we had a place together for a fair while. Yeah, so and we used to go dog trialing together and everything. Yeah, so we had a spare bit of time together. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll get on to a bit of trial later on, but mate, how would your job look where you at your place now without dogs? Like, could you do it, or if you could, how would that look? How would you go about it?
You could probably do it, but there's not much.
Would you want to?
Yeah, would you want to? I suppose it's a better question.
Like, I wouldn't go out without the dogs that move stock. Like, it's just not. Look, I love working dogs, and I think it's more beneficial to stock to be handled. It's look, as I said earlier, I sort of harp on it a bit, but it actually, when you handle them right, they relax and they actually do better. Like when stock cows and calves are taught to just walk out and not fight, or steers or whatever it is, just to walk down the road when the dog's only there as a guide, really, like, and that's how you want them. They put more weight on, they're more settled, and I think that's our job as stock people, isn't it? Look after our animals. So I wouldn't really go out to work. Like, it's some contractor these days, you probably wish you didn't have dogs, because some of the cows and calves that sort of you get lobbed with never seen a dog really, and it's pretty messy to start with.
Yeah,
but it doesn't take long if you handle them right. It's all pressure and release, isn't it? Like horses.
So if you were in that situation and you had, I don't know, 500 head, how would you go about getting them to where you wanted them right in the head and being able to Great walk around and Grace.
Well, it comes down to a couple of things. It's like if you're talking about say 500 head of cattle or something. Well, if you graze all in one mob, that makes a big difference because you move them all the time. You put a bit, and they realise they're going somewhere. So you teach them that whenever you go to move them, they're going to say fresh feed or something. Well, that's a reward for them. So they work under the same, like breaking stock works under the same principle. It's a reward release, sort of a positive feedback a lot of the time. Then when you're using dogs for the first time, you probably just got to split them up a bit. You've got to know what your dogs can do, like how many they can handle at a certain time, and to handle them efficiently so you get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone's probably been in a situation where they wish they had a few more dogs at the time to do a job, or wish you didn't open the gate.
Within your team, do you like a lot of similar dogs, or you like a little bit of variety?
I like a particular style of dog. I like a bit of well, if you go back to Blue and Skid, they're totally different by the same side, but out of different bitches, and they're totally different styles of working cows and calves or sheep or anything. Like Skid's pretty plain, pretty straight, but bites pretty high on the head, and he comes out of his stock like at a cow or something. He'll draw a line and the cow come to him and pretty rare him, and he bites, jumps up and grabs around the top of the head, top of the ears. And cows can't really get him. He doesn't really. He's had a couple of broken legs, but that sort of wasn't his fault. And then Blue's totally different. He had a lot more class and grip on his stock, and he could bite on the end of the nose and be curled right around it, but then get out of the road. And Blue had a few broken foots, but like toes, but never had a broken leg or anything. He always got out of the road. So athleticism is pretty important. And so my present team, they're sort of a mix between them. There's a few plain straighter dogs, and then there's a few classy ones that'll handle 3 sheep. Or I like the dog who does everything. Got to work sheep. Got to be clean on sheep. I don't mind every now and again bite the head of sheep if they have to, but no dirty bite. I don't like any hind leg bite much. A good dog knows the difference between sheep and cattle too. Yep. So there's no excuse your dogs can't work both.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah, that one actually ties in with what we're talking about now from John.
This one?
Yep.
John Stiles asks, what are the main characteristics that all your brood bitches must have to be bred from?
They've got to handle sheep pretty good, good touch. Got to have strength. The bitches, I'm probably a bit more on the side of got to have a pretty good temperament for the bitches. I think a lot of the genetics comes back through the bitch lines, like the female lines. So they've got to be pretty solid. I like they've got to have a bit of grip on the stock. I like it that comes out their stock. You've got to be able to do that, but not torment them, but have it in them. Because at the end of the day, they've got to move stock. That's all. So they can be fancy and plenty of breakout, plenty of cover and all that. But if they're not coming at the stock, they're not going to move anything. So you've got to be able to drive and that's about what I look for.
Yeah. What sort of what are you considering before you're doing a joining?
If I'm using one of my bitches, what they're lacking probably. I try to corrective mate a bit too. Strength, I'll go to a related, stronger dog sort of thing. Or if I go out, like now and again, if you're breeding pretty close, you've got to go out at times just to broaden the gene pool a bit. So you might go to a dog you know he's pretty strong, but you put him over a pretty classy bitch who's got most things you need. And then once you get a pup out of that litter, well, you go back down your bitch line sort of thing. You breed tight again.
Yeah.
So that's what a bit of corrective, mate. You probably look for a bit of an extreme sort of sire, but there's not a lot around. That's for sure. It's not a lot of kelpies that are strong.
Do you enjoy breeding, mate, or is it just a necessary evil for yourself?
I've had 4 kids, so yeah. Yeah, no, I enjoy breeding. Yeah, breeding sheep and everything. Actually, yeah.
What is it about breeding your own pups you enjoy?
I enjoy unique. What works doesn't. Enjoy it's just about breeding a good dog, I suppose. You get enjoyment about knowing that you're with it, getting a good dog by putting it together a number of traits to get what you want. Because breeding a dog, there's so many things to look at in it. Like people talk about hold and drive and strength and cast and cover. And you've got to be able to back. Got to bite cattle on the nose. You don't want to bite sheep. You want to be tough. You want to be athletic. So there's a few traits there we're all chasing, and you do get a lot of phone calls about that's the sort of dog I want to buy. And you feel like, well, I do too. And so it's not an easy game. Breeding anything to get what you want, you never get there. You probably never get there, but you still got to aim to where you want to be. You got to aim big, don't you? So.
Yeah. Question just come through just in time from John O'Pillow, and he's asked any young dogs that you've seen that you'd like to use.
Not for a while, Jono. No. I don't get out a lot though. I've been any dogs I've been using lately are sort of pretty well related. Yeah. So we had an Australian championships in Scone here a couple of weeks ago, cattle dog trials, and there was nothing which sort of fit the bill of what I want really. Like there's some good dogs there. Chris Bagnall's got good dogs, but there's probably a bit too far, like a bit of everything in them. And then there's a couple of Victorias, dogs out of Victoria, yeah, work pretty good, but it's probably nothing better than what's around this area, probably in what we've got. No, if I probably see Chris Stapleton, Chris has got so much depth in his breeding. Like, yeah. Even though he's probably gears towards utility and sheep a bit more than cattle, those better dogs are his. That's where all else sort of probably originated from, really. Like Target and Watch and all those dogs, they were good dogs. And that's all through all our bloodlines. Like they were just good practical dogs with strength and everything you need, work sheep and cattle. And that's all sort of I'm after.
And actually, before we got on live, we were having a chat about Chris and the vision he showed to take straws from Old Boss and implement AI, probably early on before a lot of people even thought about it. Where do you sit in there, mate? Is that something you'll toy with, or?
I've got a few. I've tried Skid and Blue to get semen out of them. I've got some out of Skid, but Blues was never viable. He's never missed two, but he wasn't good enough to store. And then, I sort of haven't really. I'm pretty hard taskmaster on my dogs I keep, so I don't actually have any others at the moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a great tool to be able to use, though, down the track. To bring it back in.
Yeah, beautiful. I had a question here, mate, but I won't ask this one. I'll ask it to you later. We spoke about, mate, those straws you did have there, and I'm assuming there's not a lot. How will you go about using them and picking the right bitch? Like, Obviously, that's not something you're just going to use willy-nilly.
No, I'll just have to. I'll wait for the right bitch. Yeah, I might have something. I've got a couple of young bitches here shaping up pretty good. I might put them over in it. It's just if I need something, how skid works, sort of thing. If I've lost that a bit, I'll use it for sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful, mate. Excuse me. Mentioned trialing earlier. Have you done much trialing?
I've done a fair bit of cattle dog trialing over the years. Yeah, I know when the first one would have been in the early '90s probably. Here at Timor, I think would have been one of the earliest ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then done a bit of trialing for a fair while, just on and off. I don't do as much now. I just do a few bigger ones at the moment. But
didn't you win the futurity with Blue?
I've won the Scone Futurity, the National Futurity with Blue and Skid, and I won the Open and the Futurity both times with both of them.
Yeah.
Then I had a fair bit of success with Kenny's dad, Dean. I won a fair bit of trial with him. I've been blessed to get good cattle, I suppose, and be able to put them around.
Yeah. And just cattle trials, or have you dipped your toe in anything else?
I've had a go at sheep once in Murrindai, and that was with my first bitch I had. We talked about earlier, Luca, and she was pretty handy bitch on sheep, and she was going pretty good actually, going towards the pen, and then once fronted up to her, and she grabbed him on the nose, and he said, "Thank you very much." And so I thought that. And then I watched him and this judge run in the Open with his dogs, and there was a collie. Nothing against them much. And he couldn't put the sheep away. He finished, and I thought, well, that's not for me, this. So, and then yard dog trials. I haven't really done much yard dog trial, no. So I'm stuck with the cattle dog trials.
Yep.
What is it about the cattle dog trials, like besides working cattle, but I suppose the trialing, aspect is what I'm asking. What do you enjoy about the trialing?
Trial is a good indicator if it's run right. Like it's all fresh cattle and it's pretty fair across the board. It's a really good indicator of what your dog can do. I know people. I think there's a few of these other trials coming around now, bush trials and that, where you can actually assist your dog. But I think trialing actually shows what your dog can do. A good dog knows where to be, and I think a lot of people miss that point. Like they think trialing is just about being able to put a dog somewhere. The good dogs are actually already there a lot of the time. And then trialing's about, well, you go out on a trial ground, you got 3 head cattle, you've got to assess them as they come out, they run past you basically, and then you got to know your strengths and your weaknesses of your dogs, and then you've got to get them home. That's the whole idea, is to get the job. If you know your dog's a bit weak and you got a touchy bugger, well, you've got to avoid the issue. Or if you got tough cattle, and after delivery, a lot of the time in a cattle dog trial at a delivery, you got a bit of free working area there, so you can actually you give the cattle a bit of a chop there and then get underway. Like it's a bit of being a street smart, I suppose, a bit of stockmanship, plus being able to read your stock and knowing your dog. That's what I like about trialing. Whereas other trials there, or some of these trials now where they've got the ability to help your dog, well, you do that every day, though. It doesn't, like a good stockman can get around most trials if you exist, but taking the person out squares it all up for all dogs involved, really. That's what I believe, yeah. But I like trials that are progressive in the scoring. Like, so the more obstacles you have, the more value is. So say the put away might be 15 and the first couple of might be 5 and 10 or something. So it encourages people to get a job done. Like, I think you still got to keep that practicality of getting a job done in your dogs.
Yeah.
It's something I'm a bit passionate about.
Yeah,
we were talking about this before. won't get into where I went because I'll upset a heap of people. But yeah, 100% agree with you. Like at the end of the day, you're there to get a job done, and you should be rewarded for the further you progress for getting a job done. Now, and more so completing the job.
Yeah, definitely, Dan, because you don't want to get paid points for just sitting and doing or you don't lose points, do you? Like you're just sitting and doing nothing. Whereas the person who takes to take the next obstacle on, well, he risks it all because he could lose more if he gets into trouble, doesn't he? But he should be rewarded for going ahead. And I know we're a risk-averse society where we don't like to expose anyone to risk, but geez, you don't go if you don't risk something, do you? Like it's.
Oh, exactly. 100%.
You nailed it on the head there, mate. Nailed it.
I was going to say, do you have a favourite trial?
A favourite type of trial or a favourite trial?
Favourite trial.
Time over here has always been a good trial over the years. Yeah, we had pretty good success at Time. Yeah, it's funny. Some trial grounds you don't go very well at. Yeah, and sometimes stock don't work at them, and they're always tough. And sometimes you have success at a certain ground, and whether that's a psychological thing and your belief because you inadvertently never had any luck here at this ground, and then guess what? You don't.
You've done the whole Bruce Lee thing. Talk yourself out of it.
Yeah, definitely, and that's so important in any sport, though, isn't it? And that gets dog when you're trialing. You got to have belief in your dog can do it, because if you don't have belief, that dog knows you don't have belief in him. And then those cattle, they're not dumb either. They realise that, well, this dog doesn't think he can do it. And he doesn't think he can do it. So guess what? They're not going to do it. And you see it so often. So young blokes go out to a trial and, I won't do any good. And they don't have that belief. You got to trust your animals, horse, dog. You got to trust kids. Trust is really important. You got to trust your stock. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you're doing fairly well locally there. We got a bit of reputation. You mentioned there about the really good wins you've had. How far are you prepared to travel to do a little bit of trialing?
We went up to the Crowe in Central there for the Australian Championships there one year. We didn't do any good, but it was a fair eye opener. I've been up the North Coast, all up through the North Coast, up to Cabarita and then I've been down the Man from Snowy River Challenge. The first year it ran, we blew one at the first year it was on. That was pretty good. Yeah, so it just depends how they run it. Like I've got a bit of a bugbear about the 5.3 obstacles, and you can sit and they're making the grounds a lot smaller and just to suit people getting them around really and rerunning cattle's pretty tough. It's just pretty unfair. But look, it's all great. There's a lot of things that come into it. There's a lot of our time all over. We walk cattle in everywhere. We have all fresh cattle. And it's just across the board. It's pretty fair.
Mm-hmm. I guess you don't rerun cattle at a camp draft, do you?
No. Probably some of them you probably wish they did.
Nerves. Do you get nervous, or have you in the past?
Well, everyone gets nervous, I think, don't they? You've got to be nervous because nerves it's a way of getting your body attuned, ready to go, isn't it? But once you go out there on a trial, no, I don't get nervous. I usually visualise what I'm going to do, and then try.
Do you use that a bit in a lot of things, like visualisation?
Try to now, for sure.
Do you do that at work as well?
Yeah, I do, with animals, I try to do a lot of that, doing a job too. I try to visualise and surprising how many times it works. Like you're riding a horse along and you want to ride towards a tree, you visualise it, and of course most of the time ends up going towards a tree, without any other cues, and work and stop, going through a gateway, you've got to believe they're going to go through, and it's things. If you have something to happen, you can there's some, I don't know where it is, it usually makes it happen at some degree. If you believe your dog can get around those stops and put them through, yeah, he'll get there. Yeah.
There is 100% agree with you. There's a law of attraction, it's called. If you believe in something and visualize it and you believe in it enough, you can make it happen.
Yep.
But you've got to really believe you're able to doing it. There's actually I think a thing on Netflix about it. So you think I'm into all voodoo stuff? I'm all into this stuff, mate. I love it. I'm massive on visualizing things, especially if it's something I've never achieved before. I just go, all right, this is what I want to achieve it, and this is how I'm going to go about it.
Adam Rowe sent me a podcast on bull riding. I'm not into bull riding, but it's called One Gauge. And it was an interview with Gary Few, who's a 7-time world champion bloody bull rider in the States. And yeah, everyone's probably should listen to that. And that he goes through, he's got one of the most successful bull riding schools in the world, really. And it's all on mental attitude, visualization. And it's based on a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. So
I'm not against it, and I'm not saying it doesn't work, but there comes to a point where training and consistency come into that. Like, you can't just think, oh, I'm going to go out and win the Australian and not put any effort in. Like,
it's all part and parcel, right?
It is, but yes,
you still got to be. Yeah, you definitely. You're going to do all the preparation. You still have to prepare. You've got to do everything possible to get there, but you still need that belief in the end to finish the really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Mate, and
you still got to train.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, still true. Mate, and off the back of that, when you get around to your cattle trials and being quite successful, what is there something that you see a lot of novice handlers struggle with, like consistently? Like, is there one particular or one or two things particular seem to struggle with?
Yeah, there's one thing, a simple thing. Well, as I said, I listened to, as I said earlier, I hadn't listened to many of your dog talk podcasts, and then yesterday I listened to a Kamari Wilkinson's, and he actually mentioned me on about he's getting in a trial, and he's putting his dog everywhere, looking pretty and everything, and he didn't finish the job. And when he came past me, I said, Murray, look, you just got to get the job done. And to get a job done at a trial or anywhere, you've got to have stock flow, and that's a lot of people. You see it at a trial all the time. They just shut their stock down. To win a trial, you basically got to have your stock just walking around, and all we are is a guide. So you've got a picture of where your dog usually knows, but you've got to know too. Like you see a lot of people, they send their dog and they shut them down one way, and so the cattle think, oh, well, I can't go that way. And so they take it to the right turn. Then the dog's there. He blocks it that way too. And the cattle think, oh, I can't go there. So they can't start coming back. Then the dog's there too. And then all of a sudden the cattle think, oh, where do you want me to be? He shut all three doors. No other option but to smash the door down and go over the top of it. And then when that bloke walks off, he says, oh, geez, they are mongrel cattle. And the problem that he actually caused because he didn't let the stock have a direction where to go. They've got to have somewhere to go. That's all it is in stock handling. It's like all the fancy names of low stress stock handling, and that it's just stock flow and giving animals a chance to, like, you're telling them what to do. So you open the door for them and let them know where they're going. And that's how I approach my dogs. Like, if I want to get them through a gateway, I just shut all the doors except the open gate. Like, that's. And give them think about it. You don't need to. You probably, everyone needs to slow down when they're handling. Stop. The fastest is usually the calmest one, isn't it? It's when you slow things right down, things happen really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, has your enthusiasm for working dogs and livestock been passed on to your kids?
We've got one boy who's pretty keen. Yeah, he likes it. Yeah. The two girls, no, I don't think they won't. Well, I had my second eldest daughter, Eliza. She was really keen, and then 12-year-old switch, which girls find a bit, and that she was my main helper for a long time. No, they've all been exposed to it. They all love animals, that's for sure. So you never know. It depends. They might marry someone on the land. That too, and you probably end up with someone on the land.
And being a property owner, mate, and working for yourself, if you had to employ someone, what qualities would you be looking for in someone to employ?
Trust, honesty, with desire, and then kindness, I suppose. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, that sort of sums up most things.
Yeah.
And off the back of those qualities, someone out there that may be looking to get into the livestock industry, what advice would you give them other than possessing those qualities?
Yeah, to get in the livestock industry, get a couple of good dogs, really. Like, if you've got a couple of good dogs, you'll get a job anyway. Yeah. And to have good dogs, you've got to have those qualities most of the time anyway. You can't be cruel on dogs and expect to get 100% out of them. You can't be cruel on any animals or anyone, can you? And then you've got to trust them. You've got to trust them to do a job without you demanding it. And then honesty, I suppose, is just the love and kindness. The kindness is pretty important too. We all have moments where you crack, but as you get older, it doesn't actually solve the problem, does it? You've got to be kind. You've got to be kind to animals. You've got to be kind to everyone, don't you? It's not hard to be nice.
Not only does not solve
as
the
a young bloke a young person getting on the land, get a couple of good dogs and make yourself invaluable. And go to a few schools, make some phone calls. Most people are more than happy to have someone to come around and show them a few things. Like, it's not, it won't cost you anything.
Cracking advice, mate. Cracking it.
Knowledge is free, isn't it?
It is.
Is there anyone you'd like to see us sit down and have a chat with on Dog Talk?
Well, I don't know exactly how many people. You've had 94 people or something. So you've gone through a lot. I should get my brother. Ben's he's a really good stock handler, and he's got different attributes.
There he goes. He just dropped off.
He's dropped off, has he?
No, just taking the piss. No, he's tuned in tonight. Listeners to us here and go, oh, there he goes. No, he's still on.
Tony, had Tony McCallum on.
No, haven't had the luxury of having Tony
on
yet.
Tony, whether you get Tony, like, he's more of a dog behaviouralist, I think, than a great stockman or anything. But he knows dogs inside out. Tony does, and he can tell a story. Yep.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Fire those few up, mate. Was there a question that stood out for you tonight, and they were win a bag of Enduro high energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat?
Yeah, I think it was Jamie Manning's one, actually, about my brother.
Yep. Beautiful. Well, Jamie, get in contact with us.
Sorry, mate, we missed that.
Yeah, send Jamie a bag. He'd love that, I think.
Too easy. Reach out to us, Jamie. If you can flick us a message, mate, we'll grab some details. A bag of Enduro coming your way. Also, Pete, thank you for your time tonight. There's a bag coming your way as well. Excuse me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the evening.
That's right.
She's not going to let you off that easy, mate.
You've listened to a couple now, so you do know the last question. Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
I was listening to that on Murray's, and I have no idea what that means, Laura.
There's no meaning behind it. There's honestly no meaning.
One duck, or 20 the size of a horse, or 20 horses the size of ducks. Which one are you going to take on?
Say it again. Say it again.
One duck the size of a horse, or 20 horses the size of ducks?
Yeah, I'd take the 20 horses the size of ducks, I think. Ducks, they're not that easy to handle. We've had ducks.
Oh, I love it.
That's the game, mate. Mate, thank you very much for having a chat to us tonight. Appreciate you giving us your time.
It's been great.
No,
But-
thank you,
Enjoyed it.
Dan. Thanks, Laurie. You've done a great job. Yeah, really appreciate you having me on. And I hope everyone gets something out of it. Actually, I'm sure they have out of every other one. So, yeah.
Thank you, mate. It's been very enjoyable. And to everyone listening tonight, thank you for jumping on board and listening, and to everyone with their questions, and to everyone listening back. I hope you enjoy this. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.